Today I've got the FlyDream version 3. Now this is an upgrade from the version of the that was on the website already, the review I put on the website some time ago. Apparently they've fixed a few of the problems that I highlighted. One of the big ones being the swamping, the fact that when the transmitter is too close to the receiver, the lights go out and there's nobody home. So I've been putting it through its paces. The full review is on the website, but there's a couple of things I want to show you because it got me a little bit puzzled perhaps. I'm going to turn on the transmitter. Here we go. Notice the spectrum analyzer here. I will zoom in on this for you so you can see what that looks like. Now this is claimed to be a frequency hopping system by FlyDream, and I guess it really depends on what you consider to be frequency hopping. Because unlike the other frequency hoppers that we've seen, this is using only a small part of the band. And in fact, if we look more closely down here where we look at the density of the transmission, there's only 3 peaks. So it's not much changed from the last FlyDream, and although they call it frequency hopping, it's actually a triple channel system. Although, again, this is a rather odd looking presentation up here. It's not at all even. If I go to the 3-dimensional view on the spectrum analyzer, you can see that really it does hop around a reasonable amount down here, but there's still a big wide gap in the middle. Now, go back to 2D. Having said that, I'll show you now what. And look at the strength here. It's minus 40 decibels are these peaks of the transmission. Now I'll turn this off and I'll put up here another frequency hopper, which is actually the FrSky, just as a reference. Not drawing any comparisons here other than the difference between what FlyDream calls frequency hopping and what others call frequency hopping. I'll go back to a 3D view so we can see what happens. I'm going to turn on the FlyDream now, and you'll notice 2 really important things. For a start, these peaks are much taller than with the FlyDream. The FrSky transmitter here seems to be putting out quite a bit more power than the FlyDream. And in fact, when I first tried this out, I thought, oh, maybe the FlyDream is in range test mode, but it's not. It's in full power mode because range test takes it down. So there's quite a bit of difference. I'll go back to the 2-dimensional window here, and we can see that this here, the peaks are actually not any higher, but there's a lot more density to the transmission. That means that the FrSky is transmitting more often. It's putting more energy into the band than the FlyDream. So the range between the 2 systems is probably going to be pretty much the same. It's just that the FrSky has more stomping power, you might say, because it is actually putting more energy into the band. Let's go back to the 3D view again and look at how much of the band now is filled with those peaks and troughs that indicate transmissions. Now, while I leave that on 3D, I'll turn that off and I shall put the FlyDream back up here in the same place so we can get that comparison again, because I think it's quite an important one. FlyDream is now on. You'll see the little peaks start to appear, but look at the difference. There's still a big gap down here where the FlyDream isn't using, and the peaks themselves are not as high as the peaks of the FrSky. So in effect, the FlyDream is much more conservative in its use of the band. It's not putting as much energy in, which is good for other people using the band, but by the same token, it would compromise to a small degree its ability to resist interference. Now, having said that, you'll notice if I go back to the 2-dimensional view, once all this other stuff from the FrSky disappears, as it will slowly, I'll turn on first of all, I'll turn on the receiver here, and I shall zoom out on the camera so we can see what's going on here. Right, here's a servo that I have hooked up to the thing. I actually probably have to zoom in again so you can see that. Here's a servo hooked up to the FlyDream system, and as you can see, whoops, on the stick, it's working quite well. I've noticed this is much smoother than the version I tested before. Hope that didn't interfere with the microphone. This is a much smoother system than the 1.2 that I tested some time ago. The servos respond without jerkiness. It's nice. Nice, I like that. And you'll see it's working quite happily at the moment. The little red LED on the receiver is on. I don't know if we can see that on the camera. And it's all working just fine and dandy. Now, as you can see, the FrSky stuff has gone, and now we're left with the FlyDream stuff. There's those 3 peaks again just coming through. You notice where those peaks are situated, because what I'm going to do now is turn on the video sender that I use as a good source of interference. I'll just zoom in a bit so we can see that a bit better again. When I fire up this video sender, it is going to stomp wholeheartedly over these peaks at the bottom of the screen, or the left-hand side of the screen. Here we go. Stand by for action. Right, now, you can see, I'll go to 3D because it makes a very stunning view on the 3D. Here comes the video center, stomping over quite a bit of that stuff down the bottom. There's really only one little peak free on the FlyDream transmission thing. But the red light is still on the receiver, and it's still working just fine and dandy. And I'll back out on the camera so you can see that. I might point out that as you can see, the video center signal is incredibly stronger than the signal from the FrSky transmitter. Sorry, from the FlyDream. So many these Japanese names, they get me confused. But as you can see, that servo is still working just fine. It's responding to the transmitter. Even though we've got this huge lump of interference sitting right on top of two of those signals, two of the peaks that we had from the FlyDream. We'll go back to the two-dimensional. You can see, stomped right over the top of the two peaks that were in there. They're being annihilated, but it still works. And that's one of the things with 2.4 gigahertz. There's so much headroom in these systems, especially the Chinese ones. There's so much headroom in terms of how much power you need and how much interference rejection they've got, that even with a powerful system like this right beside it, it's still working. It's actually better than the Spectrum. The Spectrum stopped working when the two overlap channels were swamped by the video receiver. The FlyDream continues to work, which is good. Now, as I say, go to the website because I've written more about the FlyDream. It's a bit of a paradox, this system. I mean, it works quite nicely. I like it. It is smooth. It has good interference rejection. It has good range. But technically, it has some flaws. And it shouldn't work as well as it does, but it works really well. So I've covered some of these things in the review on the website. Go and have a read that review because it fills in all the gaps. This is really only to show you how the system works. And what I'll do now is show you something else. I'll turn the transmitter off, leaving the video sender on, and I'll zoom in again so we can see the screen. And you remember that if we go back to the 3D, because you get a bit of a history on the 3D, you can see what's been going on. The transmitter was using this part of the Spectrum. I'm going to turn it on again now. Now that in fact, I'll turn the receiver on first, as they say. Turn on the transmitter. Okay, now it's all bound up, it's all working, it's working fine. And I'll turn off the video sender because I want to see if it has adjusted for that strong signal, whether it's moved its transmitting signals outside of that interference like the high-tech system does. So we can see, no, it's still got some peaks inside. It's changed this one for some reason. It's gone from there to there, but it's still transmitting where the noise was. So it doesn't seem to be very adaptive in the way it handles the band. That's a bit unfortunate because it's actually started trying to use a piece of the Spectrum that was already in use by the video center, but it still worked because of all that wonderful headroom that we get with 2.4 gigahertz. So I see it's also put another one out the side here. So it has tried to dodge it a bit, but it's still stuck one right in the middle. That's a little bit odd. I'm not quite sure how that's doing it, but again, look at the small amount of amplitude in these peaks. It's really quite sparse with its transmission. And like most of the Chinese 2.4 manufacturers, the FlyDream system has a range of receivers available. I'm using the 6-channel here, it's quite small, same size as the early version, and then there's this little postage stamp sized 4-channel, which is absolutely miniature. It's for your foamies, that's got to be brilliant. Take standard servo connectors, that's good too. And then there's the 8-channel system. Now I'm told that the current version is backwards compatible with the previous version, and I'll be testing that and telling you whether that's in fact the case on the website. So go there now, check the review. Thank you for watching this little bit of an interlude, and thank you for subscribing to the channel if you're a subscriber. And don't forget the prize draw is coming up real soon. I'll see you later.